Welcome everyone to a casted game for Age of Empires 4, and today spawning in the northwest corner of the map, playing in purple. We've got GUA playing as the English, and his opponent in the southeast, playing in orange. We've got Kiljardi. I hope I said that right. He's playing in orange as the Jeanne faction. Welcome everyone to Coastal Cliffs. That's the map for today, and this is a game as part of a tournament. And I believe it's Cal's tournament, but I don't know much more than that. I probably should, but I'll leave a link in the video description, hopefully, if I remember. Either way. This is super interesting because Coastal Cliffs, you got a cliff and you got a coast, which doesn't actually necessarily have any fish at all. But what it does do, makes the map a little bit smaller, which is kind of fun to see because it's going to make it more aggressive. And boy, oh boy, do we have two incredibly aggressive players playing out against each other today. And using two relatively aggressive civilizations. Now, I've got to say, Jeanne d'Arc probably a little bit more aggressive, but in the right hands, and I tell you what, GUA definitely has the right hands for it. The English can be incredibly aggressive, heading forward with a couple of these man-at-arms. Already looking to do some damage. Now, really what you want to do, you want to deny the gold, right? He wants to deny the gold, so, well, he won't deny a tech up, that's for sure. Not with Jeanne on the case. But what he will do, he will delay the timing on that first Royal Knight, and that will give some advantage to the English to try and build up an army before that first annoying, pesky knight comes on the field. Now, the reason why I love this matchup is because GUA, he plays a lot of aggressive civilizations, and English is certainly one of them, and he plays them very well. So I'm excited for the civilization matchup, but I'm also excited for the players in particular, because both of them are incredibly aggressive. They've been known to be. And it doesn't really surprise me they picked two relatively, well, potentially aggressive civilizations. Well, Jeanne d'Arc is definitely aggressive. The English are potentially aggressive. And two man-at-arms being annoying, and bear in mind that the fact that the map is smaller, it really pays it pays a lot of respect to these two civilizations and how aggressive they can be, because ultimately in the mid game they're going to be challenging over resources in a much condensed area, and it means a keep or two could be a lot more significant. Obviously, a keep covers a certain area to protect, and there's not that much area to protect. When you start getting forward keeps, it can really deny a lot of resources from your opponent. Speaking about denying resources, well, GUA doing a great job of denying gold as much as possible, but that school of cavalry will go up, and he is forcing idle time on the villagers going back and forth, but he will of course get that knight out pretty quickly. And bear in mind, what does GUA do with this? He's delayed his opponent a little bit. He's going to continue with the feudal age aggression, which I suspect he will. Maybe argue getting a second town centre, pretty risky though I think against Jeanne and kiljardi in particular. So I wouldn't be expecting to see a second town centre. It wouldn't be totally crazy to see, but it's just really unexpected in the matchup and the way GUA tends to play. We're going to see a forward council hall instead, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a mass of longbowmen and a mass of spearmen, and possibly even think about getting a couple of man-at-arms added into the mix later on in the game if he can deny this gold, because it's very far forward. Now, gold is an issue for Kiljardi. He needs to make sure he gets gold for his knights. I think it's a big part of the game plan for the English to deny the gold, because this is the forward gold and everything else is forward as well. 2 gold veins here, 1 on the west side. So ultimately, if the English are going to pressurize from this area here, he's naturally going to pressurize 3 gold veins in 1 screen, which is very rough there for Kiljardi. But it does mean he has this access to gold on the west side, which GUA needs to keep an eye on. Ultimately though, with that school of cavalry nearly up, he should be able to get 1 or 2 knights and push by the man-at-arms, and I'm not so sure he's delayed him enough before the longbowmen pop out. What's interesting, by the way, guys, we've seen a bit of a resurgence of wheelbarrow coming in. I've noticed it in the last couple of games. Kiljardi getting it now. And I think it makes it for a nice kind of smooth transition in terms of gold income in the build, but it's an interesting thing. Especially considering movement speed of villagers isn't necessarily the biggest deal for Jeanne d'Arc. It's not as if... although, to be fair, if he does go for the pocket economies, which would be a little bit tricky, it'd be quicker to get out there. So that makes a lot of sense. And the school cavalry is now up and running. GUA got to the feudal age a little bit earlier, but the knight is going to be the big showstopper. Insufficient wood. This is an issue. Like, actually, this has done a lot of damage, by the way. He's not able to repair this quite quickly. I mean, he's going to need to gather more wood. He's not able to afford a lumber camp. This is great value. Okay, sure, he didn't deny the gold necessarily coming in. Caused a lot of idle time, but more importantly, he's forced him to actually really gather wood inefficiently. Now, good thing is getting wheelbarrow. Although he's had to walk a long distance for quite some time. This is really good. as early aggression from Jiwei. It caused a lot of idle time. It's not to be underestimated. When you get to this level of gameplay, by the way, these type of players, these little small differences aren't actually that small. They're pretty big. Because there's very little that separates them generally. And so small differences like this can play a big role in the way the game turns out. For Conqueror level 1 players like myself, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it makes a big difference. It's probably what it's kind of one of the biggest things. Not one of the biggest things, but one of those things that separates us from them. Which is why we love watching their games. Here comes a knight coming forward, and it's going to be sniped a little bit with 2 spearmen, although it won't be enough to kill it unless he really mismicros it. Kiljardi going to try and focus on a couple of longbowmen that are trailing behind, and Jeanne starting to head further forward. Going to go for the woman at arms. Now, at this stage, Jeanne isn't all that powerful. She's pretty decent, but it really starts to get scary when she gets to the next level, which is something that GUA won't want to let happen. Now, speaking about what you don't want to let happen if you're GUA, is you don't really want this outpost to go up. It really offers a lot of protection for Kiljardi, rather. Going to be able to get gold with it because of it. And that puts him back in business in terms of getting Royal Knight numbers out. He's got a decent number of longbowmen. Saving 100 wood so far. Going to be getting a house first. And I wonder whether he's going to think about getting a relatively fast blacksmith to get a steeled arrow. A little bit early. Maybe doesn't have the numbers of units just to justify it just yet. Does now have that lumber camp. Getting an archery range. So it's going to be a knight archer play here for Jeanne, which is, you know, kind of expected, really. Now, bear in mind in this matchup, and whenever you play against English, you've got to be careful of being counter-raided against knights, as it is about to happen. So I wonder whether he's got any couple of spearmen. He's going to need a... Yeah, he's got one here. But one is not going to be enough. So he's definitely going to need to protect this eco a little bit more, because those 2 knights looking menacing. Now, bear in mind as well, the English kind of one of the civilizations that have a really big snowball kind of theme to them. If their army are caught in a bad position, if they cleared up, it can really spell problems for them. And that spearman needs to be careful. Charge might come out. Villagers, wait, they're going to shoot with the longbowman? Really? I mean, you got a garrison inside. Does garrison inside. Not enough space out there. 2 knights still cycling around. I'm surprised to see Kiljardi. Yeah, I was going to go around the long way and try and drag the spearman out with him. What this does do for Kiljardi, by the way, it leaves him some breathing space just to recalibrate, just to recuperate, just to regroup and get that economy back to where it needed to be. It's going to go back on another wood line. Has consecrated the town centre, by the way, so we'll make those villagers come out cheaper. Now, bear in mind, compared to the French, now the French, of course, had the faster working town centres, and now Jeanne has a cheaper working town centre. And that'll be great, being able to produce more knights with that extra food, potentially. Could even consecrate the school cavalry. Actually going for horsemen instead as the mainstay cavalry. Kind of interesting approach, actually. Maybe think about saving that gold for a rainy day for later on. We do see this sometimes, but not all that often. Going for the horsemen rather than the knights. Now that army is starting to get a little bit scary there for GUA. It's not really an army that Kiljardi can deal with knights and cavalry. It's just too many spearmen. And I just wonder, whether Kiljardi might need a second archery range. One so far. Looking to get blacksmith first, which is understandable. Wants those upgrades for sure. Getting chivalry too. GUA heading back home for now. It's kind of an interesting state of the game, right? Both kind of on tender hooks, both not kind of engaging just yet. There will come a time, like, I think maybe players are just waiting for the blacksmith upgrades, and maybe they'll feel a lot more comfortable about engaging. And certainly Kiljardi's ahead in that regard. Definitely Iron Undermesh is something he's going to want, and Jeanne doing Jeanne things, healing up the units back to good health. Now GUA is starting to wall up. I love this play, by the way, because it kind of gets to the stage of the game where you have to be worried about cavalry on the field, and they can always get counter raids, right? And GUA respecting that. Making sure he keeps his army at home, make sure his walls up, and then maybe looking to head out. You really don't want to leave your eco exposed. He had a couple of warning shots, by the way, so it has been warned by those 2 knights that did go around this wood line. So Kiljardi, he warned him. And GUA respecting that warning. A couple of knights just about to pressure forward, but spearmen on hand and longbows too, and This is a good time to push out here for GOA, I gotta say, although probably could look to get a couple of blacksmith upgrades now. Probably could be worth it. Steeled arrow coming out for kiljardi. Going on the northeast, and not much to hit here apart from those. To be fair, it's quite a big juicy target to hit, those villagers. But GOA keeping his eye on it. And starting to push further forward. That's actually looking a menacing army. Bear in mind that if kiljardi decides to engage and doesn't quite commit because he's not comfortable, it does allow the longbowman to get a couple of hits off. Although Spearman not in position, Spearman need to get there. He does get there in time, and a bit scary there for a second because if you separate these two groups of units too much, those knights might take advantage. Now Broadaxe is coming in, but this shows you how aggressive these two players are. By the way, getting Broadaxe at this time, it's not terribly slow, but ultimately Broadaxe is usually one of the first eco techs you can get, or generally people tend to get, and they're getting it 12 minutes into the game. That's a testament how aggressive these players can play, or like to play. Was trying to get that second arch range, but won't go up just yet, and in fact he's already got the second one. That's the third one. By the way, I love that move, because at this point, if kiljardi just gets plenty of archers, which is not something that you really associate with Jeanne, if he does do that, he will effectively have an opportunity to push in. What it then comes down to is the extra movement speed of the archer versus the longbowman versus the extra range of the longbowman versus the archers. The spearmen, though, they'll tank a little bit. That might force the English into man-at-arms. Well, we'll have to see, because kiljardi, he's really gone for the non-gold unit, so it's always an option for him. If he tries to match like for like, but it's a bit tricky now, because that arch range has been deleted. Does have the consecration on the School of Cavalry. Might be looking to get a good surround now. We talked about how the English, they're vulnerable to being caught. And this could be a scenario where he is caught. Kiljardi should be able to pick off reinforcements if they're coming, and GOA, he recognizes that. He respects it. He pulls back for now. I mean, but if his army's kind of caught, he's heading towards the coastal cliff, and probably a good move because he needs to keep that army away just in case he loses it. The problem for GOA is that Jeanne, in the meantime, is gaining valuable XP. This is not great for GOA. Got caught there a little bit. Kiljardi picking off reinforcements and wasn't suffering too much damage. And it's a good wraparound, by the way. This is a really good play by kiljardi. It's not so much the fact that he's doing damage, which he is, which is actually great in and of itself, but the reason why this is forcing GOA back is because he's always at risk, right? If GOA's army is here and kiljardi's army is here, at any point if kiljardi decides to turn back around and fight, well, GOA would have no options to fight. He would have no way out of there. And actually it's kind of interesting because that's forced by the way the map's laid out and how narrow it can be. There's no way that he would be able to hide through. He did manage to retreat in the end, and GOA looking to reset and regroup and recalibrate. And maybe push once again. At this point, you get to wonder whether it's going to be a case of who calls whose bluff. Who decides to go to the castle age first, and whether that will change the outcome of the game. We'll have to see. I do like that kiljardi is starting to move out to the middle of the map. Whilst he can, because this is going to be a hotly contested real estate, right? There's a lot of resources here. Definitely a lot of food. Which is there's something that Jeanne will certainly want. Longbowmen start to pepper their arrows, does focus on one knight. Now I think this could be a big push here for GOA. Not so much the fact that he might do some damage against units, but if he pushes these villagers away, that'll force Jeanne into a farming transition, quite potentially. A farming transition that might be a little bit hard to do with only 8 villagers on wood. If that timing comes, it does mean GOA might start to push, although knights on the right side might look to flank, and villagers are garrisoned inside the outpost, 5 of them. Will they be left for dead? I'm not so sure. I mean, GOA backing away for now. I wonder if GOA has siege engineering or not. He's got steeled arrow coming in. Probably not, because steeled arrow is probably the first upgrade you get as the English. There it is. No siege engineering just yet. But yeah, you can see a really big transition into archers, which we mentioned earlier in the cast. I love this move by kiljardi. He wants those cavalry just to kind of be of a meat shield and maybe kite those spearmen. With a good number of archers, the spearmen start to become less relevant. Well, might be able to take the engagement though. He's got to be careful. There's still a good number of longbowmen behind this. So the spearman will tank for those archers and it allows the longbowmen to get advantage, but he's going to definitely commit now. One way or another because they're in the range of the longbowmen. Longbowmen trying to tank and, well, kind of kite back, but actually the archers there for Kiljardi. He spotted an opportunity and bear in mind the archers move faster than the longbowmen. So this is a problem. Does go back into the network of castles bonus, which will add a little bit of measure of a advantage to the English. We'll be sniping a couple of those knights on the retreat, but well, this is looking great for Kiljardi. I mean, he's going to take a lot of those units down, and if the spearman numbers do dwindle, that'll allow the cavalry to get right on top of them. Spearman numbers still decent, though. He's engaging here a little bit. Here comes Holy Wrath for Jeanne, and this is a problem for GUA. He's starting to be outnumbered. This is a problem. We talked about English. If they take a fight, that's bad. It snowballs, and well, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. Level 3 for Jeanne, and starting to push the cavalry, pushing hard with the archers in the back line, and yeah, slowly being pushed. Network of castles is not going to be enough. Villagers on the front line look to get the deer camp. Or in fact, is that the boar? In fact, I think it's the boar. But those villagers having to back away. In fact, some of them garrisoned, I think, inside the... Wait, did he? Oh, I think he pressed the button to make them garrison, and they went to the seek shelter button. Went into the outpost, and it's not really where they wanted to go or needed to go. Holy Wrath ability comes out once again on the spearman, and yeah, it's not a spearman. GUA, he's on defensive mode, and to be fair, if there's one civilization that does defense well, it is the English, but I'm not so sure it's got enough here. This is going to be a tricky situation. Down to 29 military. Sure is keeping up on the village account, but that's not what wins games necessarily. Oh, that's a lot of archers there for Kiljardi. If he takes out the spearmen, getting knights here, working well. In the meantime, Jean gathering much more XP, and that wood line in all sorts of pressure. This is an issue. My voice breaking because of this game breaking. Jean gets some champions, which is going to be so difficult for GUA to deal with. Well, Kiljardi, he's heading right in and doesn't necessarily have... Oh, could he get walled out here? Nope, GUA decides not worth it. And the archers there for Kiljardi does have to retreat. Behind that aggression, by the way, Castle Age is on the cards for Kiljardi, going with the Guild Hall. The archers got caught there a little bit by the longbows, but not enough there to be too detrimental. Backing away, and the Castle Age is going to be so strong for Kiljardi, I've got to say. GUA, of course, nowhere near that situation. GUA, he's going to have to be defensive for quite some time. For at least the well, that's a lot of farms coming out, though. He's got to buy time some way. And I wonder... With good calibration of the economy, Kiljardi will start to pressurize a lot in that Castle Age. I'm sure some good upgrades coming in pretty quickly. Once it does get there. GUA, he's got a task on his hands. Took a couple of bad fights and he's definitely behind. Not so much... I mean, not only in economy, but also on that military front and also tech advantage-wise. But with the farms coming out for the English, that could be one way back into the game. It's really such a strong part of that economy. It's where the English start to come online. Here comes a knight on the field to accompany all the others. Now, I wonder whether Kiljardi will actually look to get the sacred sites, by the way. Something that often I see a lot of players not do with Jeanne. She can actually capture those sacred sites. He's moving forward now nonetheless, and I think really Kiljardi probably does need to take advantage of the tech advantage he's going to have very soon. He's going to get wedge rivets and also the veterancy upgrades for the archers. I wonder whether he's going to be investing in a monastery as well. King's Palace coming up for GUA. Now bear in mind, this is a really nice situation for GUA because he's going to effectively have 2 town centres. That's a great way to boom himself back into the game. Bear in mind, English farms gathering that really efficient food. Like when you go 2 town centres, it can be a very big hit on your economy, because then you're actually doubling your, you know, your upkeep cost, I guess, of maintaining villager production. But with the extra food coming in from the English, it makes it a little bit easier to do, but because he's going to need to make units as well. Especially when you factor in he's going to be up against the Jean's champions and those knights, which now should be veteran ones. Yep, they are. Castle Age comes in now, and that's time to go for Kiljardi. When you tech up, that's probably when you're the weakest possible time, when you've invested so much resources in that tech up, and well, GUA, he's got to find a way to hold on here, because he's going to be pressured very, very shortly. Kiljardi maybe looking to get that killer blow. Heading right in, and that King's Palace will get some value in terms of garrisonable slots, but, you know, this is looking rough here. Kiljardi gonna head right in. Bear in mind, he doesn't have any siege, though, and so it won't necessarily do infrastructural damage, but he's killing villagers, and that's just as good. Holy Wrath ability comes out on the Spearmen. Spearmen engage against the Knights, but these are still feudal age Spearmen, and that means the Knights are going to get great value. Divine Restoration comes out there for Jeanne. Archers on the back line. Divine... Wow, that's... I mean, Jeanne's doing Jeanne things. Uses the Holy Wrath ability on the longbows. This is the problem. Those archers diving in. Now, whilst he will get cleaned up most likely at Kiljardi, he's gotten so much value. Oh, another Holy Wrath ability comes out for Jeanne. Maybe he won't get cleaned up. I don't think he will. It's just too much here. Jeanne's champions and Jeanne and the archers themselves, Knights trickling in, and this could be Jiwei's time to tap out, because there it is. I mean, he just got overrun. A couple of bad fights there for the English. It really dictates this matchup. But I hope you guys enjoyed this casted game. Take care, and see you next time.